In this week's episode of Mastering the Mastermind, we're going to talk about expression pedals. An expression pedal is a rocker type pedal that you can use to adjust parameters on a device, volume, modulation rate, things like that. Thanks to MIDI, it can adjust pretty much anything on a modern device. We spent a good deal of time in the second episode talking about the connections, but we'll review it just a little bit here. And the basic connection is just simply a single 1/4-inch TRS cable from the pedal to the expression pedal input on the Mastermind. The Mastermind PVCs and LT have a single expression pedal input, and the GT has 4. Otherwise, the configuration is exactly the same on all the devices. The pedal can do the same thing. An important thing to note is that the expression pedal can generate MIDI messages, but it doesn't do anything, to the PVCs or GTs itself. So if you want it to adjust volume level, you need to have something like a pedal, some kind of effect that actually allows you to adjust the volume level. And then, the expression pedal will communicate to the Mastermind, and then the Mastermind will send its commands to the effect, and then the effect will, do whatever actual audio tricks that it needs to do. I should also mention that polarity is really important. Unfortunately, there are 2 kinds of expression pedals, each with a different polarity, the way they're wired internally. And so you need to make sure that you get one that works with our products or has a polarity switch on it. We have details on this on our website and also in the manuals for our respective masterminds. But basically, if you have the wrong polarity, you're going to get some weird behavior out of the pedal, and it's not going to work the way you expect it to. So the first thing you need to do when you get your expression pedal is you need to calibrate it. This has to be done on the Mastermind itself. And you need to get into setup mode. On the LTs and the PVCs, you hold 1 and 3. On the GT, you hold the 2 small buttons under the main screen. And you select expression pedal, and then go down to calibrate. And in calibration, you'll see a bar graph at the bottom of the screen. And what you want to do is move the pedal all the way up and all the way down, just so that the Mastermind knows the range that the pedal can sweep. If you find, especially when using things like whammy effects where you really need it to go absolutely to the top and the bottom of the sweep, otherwise it becomes out of tune, you might want to actually not move the pedal all the way to the end of each of the sweep, just so that there's a little bit of a dead spot at each end, so that you're certain to get all the way to to the ends of the pitch sweep range. With other effects, it's not as important, but if you do find that you're not getting all the way to the end, then calibrating without going to each end exactly would help. Okay, once you're done with calibrating, you can just press any button, and once you've done the calibration, if you use the editor, a good thing to do right now would be to read the settings back into the editor. Because if you were to calibrate it, then go into the editor and make some changes and then send them to your Mastermind, you're going to lose your calibration settings, because the settings in the editor did not have those settings. So after completing calibration, go to the editor, do read settings from device, and then save that to your computer. So then you've saved the settings that contain the new calibration. And then you can work from there, and it'll just always remember the calibration from there on. So in this onboard menu on the Mastermind LT and the PVC, you can still do some basic settings here. If you want to do configuration without the editor, you can, for example, go down here and you can tell which device you want the expression pedal to send to, what CC number, and the minimum and maximum values that you want to send. So right off the bat, this is going to actually send CC7 to the mini effect gizmo, and when the pedal is all the way in the heel position, it's going to send 0. When it's in the toe position, it's going to send 127, and all the values in between. Now that said, a mini effect gizmo isn't going to do anything with this, but if you had this being sent to a, say an H9 or something like that that can do volume control, then this would, right out of the box, control volume on a device. You can also go and have it control a second device simultaneously on a different MIDI channel. We don't have anything set up by default, but you can have different values going to two different devices at the same time to have sort of a crossfade or something like that. You can also change these values so that, for example, you can reverse minimum and maximum to do that crossfade so that one pedal goes from 0 to 127 and one goes from 127 to 0, and that's how you would accomplish that. Going back up here, let's see, we can talk about some of these things. Well, the switch group really needs to be talked about. Well, we'll talk about that in a second when we're in the editor. It'll be easier to deal with. And then the taper X and Y settings are sort of specialty settings. You can use a volume pedal with an insert cable to substitute for an expression pedal. If you do that, you'll find that probably most of the effect of the pedal is bunched up on one end of the travel. And if you find that, you can use the taper settings to kind of correct for that. We have some details in the manual, but that's kind of an advanced topic we'll have to do elsewhere. Okay, and one other thing is the set switch position. And this is something kind of like the calibration process that has to be done on the Mastermind. And basically what this does is it lets you have the Mastermind send a CC when you cross a particular position, like, halfway or 10% or something. And when the pedal moves above that, it sends a sort of an on message. And when it moves below it, it sends an off message. Like, for example, you can have if you have a device that has a filter effect that you want to use as a wah, you can set the switch position by moving the pedal to the 10% mark, like almost all the way off, but not quite, and then hit set switch position, and it'll remember that position. And then you can configure in the editor what you want the basically you want a CC to be sent to the device to turn on the wah effect when you're above that position, and when you want it to turn it off when you're below that position. One last thing to mention on the device here, well, two things actually. Like with calibration, the switch position should be read back into the editor to save the setting so you don't lose it. And then the other thing is, on a Mastermind GT, you have all these settings and more. On a GT, you can always do everything that you can do in the editor, you can also do on the unit itself. The LTs and the PVCs have a limited subset, like we can see here, but on the GT, you can do everything that we're going to show in the editor here in a moment. To the editor, where we can see all of the parameters. There are actually three places where you can control expression pedals, and the first one are the global settings, which is found at the top of this list here, and you double click it and it opens up the settings. These should look familiar from what we just showed on the device itself. You can name the expression pedal if you want. It has those mysterious taper settings, and we have two devices here where right now we're sending to the mini effect gizmo CC number 7 from 0 and with values from 0 to 127. And I can demonstrate here. Let's do what I was talking about. We'll add an Eventide H9, and I guess we'll change this one to something that might make more sense, that actually responds to volume messages. We'll go to a Strymon timeline, and as always, make sure they're on different channels. So going back to global, we'll open this up, and so now on the timeline, it sends CC7, 0 to 127, and we can send to the H9. We're going to send actually, does it even have let's see. What are we going to do? Is there oh yeah, there is an actual expression pedal CC, so that could be configured to control volume on the device. And then we want to do this the opposite. Doing something like this wouldn't necessarily make sense always, but if they are if you are using a parallel effect setup where the two devices are in parallel with each other and not having one run right into the other one, doing a crossfade in a parallel system would actually make sense. But so anyway, so there you go. So that would sort of crossfade between one device or one effect and the other. So now we can talk about the position switch. That is what we had talked about earlier, where you can kind of select a specific position where effect turns on when you move the pedal above that point, and the effect turns off when you move below. So this is just an action list like any other button would be. And so we could, for example, go here and do a new action, and we'll say the H9, and we'll select a CC here. We'll select the active CC, which turns the pedal on 127 and turns the pedal off when sending 0. And, assuming that we've set that position, then, that's exactly what it does. You move the pedal up, the effect turns on. You move the pedal down below that point. I had set it to, 10% above the bottom, and it would, turn the pedal off at that point. But you can, play with this and do other things, have, two completely different effects at, two different halves of the pedal, or, whatever you want to do. Couple other settings, invert position switch. Just flips it around so that if I turn this on, what would happen is that basically it would reverse, where when you pull the pedal all the way back, the effect is on, and when you push the pedal forward, it's off. This for a CC action, it would have the same effect would be just by swapping the on value and the off value. But there are some actions where you don't have on values and off values, like there's for example, a tuner action. Some people want to use their pedal as a volume pedal on, say, like a Kemper profiler, and they want, when you pull the volume pedal all the way back, that it not only reduces the volume, but it turns on the tuner. And so when we put a system tuner action here, there's no on or off value. So if you had this not turned on, the tuner would turn on when you get above the switch position, and then when you pulled it back, it would go, it would turn the tuner off. But if you want that to be opposite, you do invert position switch, and then pulling the pedal all the way back would engage the tuner. And there's one other little setting here: send current value on preset change. What this one does is it when you change presets, the pedal will resend its current position every time you change presets. And this is kind of a picky detail, but important in some cases, where you want the pedal to kind of reassert itself every time you change presets. And so, but most of the time you'd probably want this off. So that's the global settings, and this one would be just sort of the main pedal settings, and you could just leave this one set and just be done. Certain effects just take a single expression pedal CC, and so you may only need to set it up once. However, there are ways, if you want the pedal to change what it does, maybe control different devices on different presets, you can do that as well. So we hit done here, and we go to our presets, and you'll see in every preset here, there are overrides here, and here's the expression pedal override section. If you click pedal 1 and edit, you'll see the same exact screen, and we can just set something completely different just for this preset. And so maybe on this one we're not controlling the volume on the timeline, but we want to control the speed of some effect. And so now we can even, just for our reference, call it speed. And now it doesn't control anything on the H9 at all. It just controls speed on the timeline. And so this will just be in effect just for this preset, and switching to any other preset that doesn't have it overridden will go back to the sort of the crossfade thing that we set up in the global settings. There's one other thing we can do, and we can also assign these to buttons as well. There's a way to do that. The first thing we need to do is we use these expression pedal blocks here. And what these are just sort of saved expression pedal settings that we can recall at any time. So we can, for example, open up this block number 0 here, and we'll call this, let's see, well, what else can we control on a timeline? We will set the filter on the timeline. So we can call this timeline filter, like so. And so now we could, for example, set up a button. We'll put it on this external switch here. We'll make it an IA button. And if I'm going to go kind of fast here, if you need more details on IA buttons, please refer to the episode on that. And we'll call this expression pedal. And for something like this, we probably don't want it sending on preset change, because we want this button to only activate when we actually press it, and we don't want it to automatically trigger when we change on presets. Although update on preset change might not be a bad idea, because then it basically resets to the off state every time. It won't actually do anything to the expression pedal, but physically the button will turn off when we change presets. So we're going to set up an action. We're going to get a system type and the expression pedal type. And so now expression pedal 1 is the one we want. On a Mastermind LT, that's all we got, but there can be 4 on the GT. And so now for the off value, we will set this. Clicking on the ellipsis button always brings up sort of special options. We want to go up here and we want global, and we'll hit OK. So now when this button is off, it's going to recall the global setting, the crossfade we set up, and when we turn it on, it's going to select that filter setting that we set up in expression pedal block 0. And so using this action, you can set up more complicated control of the expression pedal settings and have them do things other than just change from preset to preset. So that's 3 ways to set up expression pedals, and they have precedence over each other. The global setting will be overridden by either of the other 2 options. And then, so if you have a global and then the preset overrides it, the preset will take precedence over the global setting, and the actions will have precedence over the presets. So if you have a button like this and you press it, it's going to have precedence over both the global setting and the preset level setting. So that is it for expression pedals. Please like and subscribe, and please send us suggestions for any future topics you might want to have covered. Thanks so much.